All right. Welcome, everybody. We are live today on the B2B Growth Lab. How to stop the fire hose, how to pace training so it lands. We've been touching on this stuff. It's been the theme for a little while, but today I think we're going to really dig in of what it means to actually train. Overloading anyone new with unstructured, poorly timed information is a recipe for churn and confusion. Let's call the customers churn and the team members confused.
Yeah.
Training needs a rhythm. It needs a context. It needs very intentional pacing, perhaps even some feedback in the process. Just throwing that out, proving that I've been listening to some of the stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But most of all, we want to talk about sequencing, right? How to actually onboard so that you get some sort of result. Learning that can happen just in time, things that can make retention occur, how to make knowledge stick, and how to take the steps and turn them even into little pieces of certification and success. And when you feed all that context together, you're going to escape the why more isn't better. How, I guess we were all trained to cram for an exam and memorize 100 answers that we plan to forget 2 days later. Anyway, we want to talk about how to map training into actual workflows, how to kind of set out these micro learning pieces and an environment that reinforces them, and how to build systems that actually evolve with your team and pace your clients and customers. So our goal really today is to kind of create some sort of a playbook so that you can walk away and go, I'm going to onboard these people in this manner and train those people in that manner. And then be really strategic about how you roll things out so that it takes away the overwhelm and therefore increases retention, because nobody wants to show up to work or to a service call to get the feeling like they're failing. And that's the thing that we're here to try and fix today, how to take systems that turn knowledge into skills. So where would you like to start with this one?
Oh, there's so much to talk about here, Jacob. Thanks for the frame. And there's the aspect of the forgetting curve and how training is a journey, not an event, right? None of us learned to talk. We didn't just suddenly turn to and start assembling complex grammar syntax and using 5-syllable words, did we? No, indeed, there was a progression in time from our first word to our many syllable words, right? Structure so much. So why in the corporate environment do we think that, well, I could send people to class and for 4 hours, some blowhard will talk at them, and then they go back to their desk and they'll be able to apply, to analyze, to synthesize. I'm going all the way up Bloom's taxonomy here, that they'll be able to, in a very excellent way, leverage what they were just exposed to when all they did was barely understand. Barely. Right? And it happens in onboarding, and it happens in other training, skill development classes, et cetera, et cetera. I would contend that more often than not, the fire hose that you speak of, especially in onboarding, is a function of failing to prioritize and arrange just in time what people need to know. It's often too ego-serving, selfish, completely wasteful fire hose, right?
Absolutely.
The company was founded in blah-bitty-blah-bitty-blop. The founder, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, did a blankety-blank. Do you need that on day one? Or could that maybe be part of the journey and you cover that somewhere in the first 3 to 4 weeks, right? Maybe day one is like, where's the bathroom and how do we eat and what not to say, right? Like, let's just do the basics. Get logged onto your machine. Here's where you sit, right? If you're in an office environment, here are the work hour expectations. That's day one. No one cares how old the knickknack is in the virtual company museum. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So stop the fire hose, switch to a squirt gun, and fill that puppy with alcohol, and make onboarding a heck of a lot more fun.
Absolutely. We talked about it in the past around KPIs and that kind of stuff. And I think this is one of those places where gamification actually really works.
Yes. Yes. But Jacob, gamification is hard. I'm not a good game designer, and that takes so much time. And is it really worth it? I mean, my ignorant mind can't think of how that could possibly pay off. Right? The answer is it absolutely pays off, because do people learn more when they're playing games? Yes. Why do they learn more? Because they're more engaged, because their curiosity is open, because they are learning without having to think about learning. They're learning through doing in a safe environment, psychologically safe, physically safe, otherwise holistically safe environment where they can fail forward and learn, and they feel that safety, so they lean in. So yes,
Absolutely.
gamification all day long.
Absolutely. You just reminded me of something I was reading the other day, and it's basically a new-ish form. I think it's been established for a while. In Japan, there is a preschool and play school. So it occurs after they start going to school and in the education system, and they play with blocks. It's just a safe place to drop the kids off and come back, but they're noticing the improvements in the rationalizing subject. The one that was studied was mathematics. And again, by doing nothing to do with arithmetic, these kids are getting better at arithmetic while playing.
Absolutely. Like, let's be a little more creative and innovative about how we educate people, and give them a tool, send them out into the world to apply the tool.
Yeah. And there's a fun way of taking that information, right? It may not be the right thing for your company culture, but if learning your way through things felt like a fun scavenger hunt where discovery was encouraged and mystery was embraced, instead of the it's a test, but I don't know where the answers are kind of scavenger hunt, then you're bringing that play into that environment. And that's maybe one of those things to think about. All these things are different contexts of one of the key words in today's title, the pace, right? The pace of things.
Yes.
And I think you landed on something really important earlier, because none of us really sat down and worked through the how exactly am I going to learn to speak the language my family speaks at home course. Right? It wasn't structured. It wasn't like from here to here in 12 weeks. And unfortunately, almost everything is now marketed in that way, in that sort of timeline. And I think we're taught to think that that's how we should be serving our people as well.
Yeah. Manage the expectation. See it as a ramp, not a point in time. Progress, milestones, the first 30 hours, the first 100 hours, the first 1,000 hours. Yes, absolutely. There needs to be a progression. We say all the time in training that there is this forgetting curve, but even if you have somebody with great retention, training can only give you somewhere around 20% of what you
Right.
need to actually perform at a high level. You're nowhere near expertise.
Right. I think the milestones is really important too. Noticed as getting outside became more popular and search and rescue, especially where I used to live in the South Coast, started to get really tired of coming out and doing calls like my phone battery ran out type stuff, right? I fell down a cliff and need to be helicoptered out. And so the signage really changed. And you'd see these markers that told you exactly how far it was to the objective and how far it was back to help people make better decisions.
Yes.
Right. And so they become really well informed. And whether that is the onboarding journey for your team or a client customer journey or anything like that, I think it helps human beings a lot to be like, this is where you are. This is how far you've come. This is how much further there is to go.
Love that. Yes. Have a timeline, a progress bar. Few things are more rewarding in the learning journey than understanding, getting a little bit of a dopamine hit when a milestone is celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. It's part of good design. Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's just a psychological safety to it, right?
Yes, yes. And gamify it, add points, call it dollars, right? Call it whatever. Have fun with it. Make the tokens that get awarded the CEO's face. Who knows, right? Depends on your culture what you could do, but in the current world, the digital design world, or even the in-person ILT world, there's no limit on what you could do to make it consistent with your culture, enjoyable, educational, entertaining. That's why we say infotainment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could use NFTs to make company trading cards if you really wanted to.
Right. Right.
Um,
It's wild that we let so much terrible onboarding and terrible training persist in our culture because people are dubious about everything we're talking about today, and they have a just do quick and dirty attitude toward it. And the reality is that approach just results in wasting everybody's time. It doesn't,
Absolutely.
you don't get anything, you get no benefit.
Yeah.
Right? You must click on 10 artifacts in the virtual company museum. No. Okay, 10. Let me out. Let me out of the virtual company museum, right? Like,
Yeah. I've seen it in software applications time and time again. There's a half-hearted attempt to be helpful by, giving you a feedback loop, and you'll click on a button and they'll say, you can't do that,
right.
without explaining why.
Why?
Right? Why can't I do that? How come I can't go to step 2? Not possible.
All the intuition points there, and now you're telling me no.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I used to challenge my designers in learning design to finish the complete design and use no next buttons.
Right.
Even if you rename them something else, no. I said advance the learning via a narrative. Advance the learning via a game, right? Somehow, no next button. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's not put text on the screen and then read it to them.
Right.
You have one language pathway in your brain. You can either read or listen. You can do one of the two with attention. You cannot do both. If you put it on the screen, I don't need to hear it, right? And if you're going to tell me, don't put it on the screen. Let me pick. Do I want to hear it or do I want to read it? Right? Am I a visual learner or an auditory learner? Let me pick.
That's brilliant. It actually just reminded me of one of my favorite authors on the subject, and that's Donald Norman. And he thinks about design like no one else I have ever come across in my life. And just that bit of perspective that he adds to things, it changed the way I think about like how we design things, why they were designed, and really the end use of all of those things. So yeah, if anybody wants to do homework on this stuff, I would definitely look up any of his books and read them, because they're all brilliant in my opinion.
There's a piece of this that is arguably a priori to say that you're born with it. Right? You can't. I would argue that teaching somebody to be a divergent creative thinker, imagination, wonder, right? To be that way, they will never be as good as somebody who was born with it. Right? You can learn a certain amount of skill. Play basketball as I may, I will never be as good as people in the NBA. Right? Just I wasn't born with the talent. I don't have that coordination, the physical gifts. Right? It's just, yeah.
Absolutely. That, and been doing a lot of reading lately, and it just brought up something else that I think is really important. I forget who I'm quoting now. I'll have to go back and find it. But what this guy was talking about is how when airplanes were starting to really become standardized, the designers and the engineers were like, all right, so let's make a cockpit for the average human being.
Right.
And they pulled all this data and then put together the obviously size and shape of what they assumed the average pilot was, and ended up with something that fit no one comfortably, because none of us actually share all those exact same proportions.
Right.
And it just ended up being a huge design failure, as well-intentioned as it was to fit everyone. And that's something that I'd say is just as problematic in the educational space.
Yes.
Right? Like, here's onboarding for everyone. Why? Because we have 10 new team members. Okay, so justifiably then there's probably 10 different onboarding processes, right, that need to roll out. And that's where I think some of those gaps can be closed with something you mentioned, creativity, and then that gamification thing. Because if the job is to find your way from A to B, right, then one of the things that you can judge on is who came up with the most creative way to do it. Who hopped on one foot, who walked backwards, who did a handstand and walked. And again, it kind of opens up the opportunity to really empower the people that are involved.
So tell them what they need to do, what they need to learn, and give them a library of choices of content and methods to learn it. And you have to satisfy this checklist. You have to complete this wild goose chase, right? You have to go get the scavenger hunt done. Once you've learned it, once you've checked all the boxes and passed all the tests and collected all the medallions from all the different places, scored the tokens, whatever you want to, however fancy you want to get with it, right? When you've done that, you're done. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but here's your list, right?
And then you end up problem solving within your cohort, which now you're getting the community and the team building and the co-facilitation and all the other benefits, which are really a huge part of our DNA.
That's right. And add a dimension of team competition, and then add a dimension of accountability, We're going to meet every month. I need every team to report out on how all their members are doing, what the struggles were, what the successes were, right? All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now you're that crazy teacher that makes the desks go in a circle, right? Instead of the rows. And I think that's maybe the biggest point of today's conversation is we tend to default to that environment that a lot of us were trained into, where the desks did exist in rows and the curriculum rolled out very flatly. And we can kind of remember that one teacher who's actually excited about teaching. But then in contrast, we can come up with that other one who is just, for better or for worse, kind of ticking the boxes, trying to get to summer vacation like the rest of us.
Yeah, pods, absolutely. People don't understand the change in the dynamic, the amount of increased engagement, psychological safety, sense of membership and teamwork that you get as soon as you change the room design from rows to pods.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just the basics. When we did this in leadership development, you get so much pull through on it. Because after 3 days together at a table, they're like really borderline friends, right? That's 24 hours of close contact, partnering and working together. So at the end of those 3 days, we gave each of them a sheet of paper and each of them a number. And they got to suggest a call sign, a nickname for the other people at their table.
Nice.
And then when they finally completed the entire leadership development curriculum, they could receive their call sign on their badge.
Right.
Now, they didn't get to pick their call sign. And of course, we had to screen them to make sure they weren't vulgar, right? They had to all be work appropriate. But some of them were really hysterical. And when they got them, the amount of pride being called up at the management meeting and awarded their call sign by the CEO for finishing and becoming a certified leader in the business. It's
brilliant.
You could see it in their eyes, right? It's good design and in all aspects, and you get people really bought in and growing, and you hang a giant carrot at the end of it with humor and pride. Yeah. Put it on the board, right?
Such a higher degree of quality than the cliches of, crossing the elevated rope bridge or doing the trust fall or any other stuff that you see in the movies, at least.
Yeah. But it's going to be too expensive. Yes, we should have a cost constraint. No, it doesn't have to be too expensive. A little creativity goes a really long way in mitigating cost. So it doesn't have to be fancy. Print some stuff, do some lamination, good design, game board pieces, right? It's like arts and crafts time, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy etched metal with plastic infill and polish. You don't have to do that. Right? It can be disposable. People don't care that it's not real money.
Right.
They've been playing games with fake tokens their whole life. It's no big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You don't want to pay for stickers? Put a stamp at every place on the scavenger hunt. Right? Then you don't need to maintain stickers. You just have stamps there anyway for other stuff. So lots of solutions. Just, again, not everyone can be outside the box, right? It's a particular character type. So if you want good design outside the box, observing constraints, you got to find those people in your organization. Find those businesses you can partner with who can bring that kind of creativity to bear, and you get better outcomes.
Absolutely. And then the rest of it's planning, right? Like just do that little bit of extra due diligence, choose the washable markers for the let's
Yes.
draw on the wall scenarios, and yeah, just those little things that make the big difference.
The- and I would say yes. Listen to the expert in the room, the training expert, when they say things like, we should make sure we have all dry erase markers. Oh, but the flip chart markers write much better. Yes, and
Right.
someone's going to grab one of those Sharpies and write on the dang whiteboard, and we're going to have a problem, right? So,
Yeah.
so I hear you, and right, yes, okay,
Yes.
right.
Love it. Brilliant. If somebody wanted to put something in place today and, again, make the incremental things, make the small things, do testing, find out what the minimum viable product for those sorts of things are, how would you suggest that? What would you say, like, here's a nice simple plan to roll something out and see if it works?
Well, I think once you figure out what you think they should know,
Okay.
right? So you're like projecting a need onto somebody. Spend a little bit of time, like write a quiz, write a test, simple, doesn't have to be validated, doesn't have to be fancy or extreme, and give that to people you think are really onboarded, indoctrinated, good at the thing, whatever good looks like.
Got it.
And then get those results back and change your thinking. Because what you're going to learn is you think they're good, but they only scored like 48% on your quiz.
Right.
So you have 52% superfluous BS. That's what you have. So pull it down, get focused, do less, but do it way better. That's an easy way to get a diagnostic on your own thinking and to start getting the scope of the content right before you start writing objectives and doing design work, before you start ideating, right? Get your outcomes really clear, narrow, small first.
And then map, like, so if we only hit 50%, then we know that there are 5 modules to do a 10% gain each. Oh, that didn't work. It might be 20 modules, and like just understand that the process needs to change based on how well it's being delivered. I'd say, like, the onus is actually on that. That's where you want to measure from.
Yeah. And should you allow people to test out?
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah, we've all sat in proficiency test out, not paper test out, right?
Yeah.
Depends on what it is. But we've all been made to sit through things where we're like, I know this. I know this. I just hand me the exam. Just give me the torch, hand me the screwdriver, like whatever, the wrenches, whatever it is. Yes, I'm good.
Got it.
Yeah. It's another way to save time in this process. It's not an OSHA 30 course, right? It's corporate onboarding. It's corporate training. There's not a 30-hour requirement. And spending more time is just wasting more money.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Cool. Is there anything else for people to think about in terms of actual implementation? I think like the reverse engineering, the incremental stuff, and the let people make the challenge and find their level are critical components. But is there anything else people need to think about?
I would say that there's depth here that we're not going to.
Mhm.
Right? There is a gigantic pool of rigorous depth here. Applied psychology, neurobiology, right? The underlying stuff here is real. So
Mhm.
if you're to any extent dubious about what we're talking about today, I encourage you to go to a greater level of depth. Look up people like Kolb, look up Patricia Cross, study a little bit of neurobiology, right? How it goes from your ears through your amygdala to your frontal lobes, right? Like,
Yeah. I was just reminded of that actually, like even just go and reread Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, just so you start to get the
right,
difference between the left and the right hand for a minute.
right,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah. Where do your eyes go? Well, their path is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So visual learners will process differently, actually really differently.
Mhm.
Kinesthetic learners than auditory learners, right?
Yeah,
That's different pathways to different parts of your brain. Yeah. So if you're that kind of curious person, do a little digging and you might be really surprised at what you'll learn there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thank you so much for that. And yeah, I think it was well mapped. And yeah, I think I'm actually got something I'm going to implement tomorrow. But
Cool.
appreciate the conversation.
Always, always. Good stuff, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you.